Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the latest on attempts to expand Medicaid. It's our weekly legislative update with the Arizona Capital Times. And we'll hear how immigration reform could pump millions of dollars into the state's economy. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Fred Duvall made it official today. He is running for governor. Duvall is the first Democrat to formally announce his candidacy. Duvall is a former aide to President Clinton and chair of the Arizona Board of Regents. In proclaiming his candidacy, Duvall said Arizona needs a strategy for the 21st century economy. He also criticized Governor Brewer and Republican legislative leaders for education cuts, but praised the governor for her push to expand Medicaid. And speaking of that push, the legislature is still considering Medicaid expansion and a budget and a few other things. Here with our midweek legislative update is Jim Small of the Arizona Capital Times. Good to see you. You know, a few other things. It may just be a few other. Slowing down a little bit there, huh?
Yeah, they're slowing down. Word came out today that the next week will be getting the first 3-day work week. You know, normally the legislature works 4 days. They work Monday through Thursday. But because they're at a point where you know, the budget isn't really moving anywhere, and everything is really kind of, a lot of things are hinging around this Medicaid proposal. They don't have necessarily a whole lot to do, so rather than drag everyone down there for 4 days, especially, you know, folks from out of town, they're only going to do it for 3 days. They're going to meet Tuesdays through Thursdays now, at least for the foreseeable future. Could always change, you know, if there is something that happens and things kind of break free and they need to come back to work on Mondays, I'm sure that they will.
And just to make it official, that 100-day session deadline was yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday was the 100th day, which is kind of the called upon, the officially recognized day for the end of session. Obviously, we are nowhere near the end of session at this moment. So they've legislatures extended that deadline. You know, they're allowed to do that through the rules. Extend that for another week, and I'm sure we'll keep seeing extensions every week until we get to the end of session.
How common is that extending of a deadline? It happen very often?
Yeah, actually, you know, the last 2 or 3 years the sessions have gotten done really quickly, and they've gotten done within 100 days or 110 days, which actually had been abnormal. The last 5 years before that, you had a Republican legislature and a Democratic governor, and so sessions drug on into May, or even in several cases into late June or early July, which, you know, those were a little bit more abnormal. So, you know, it's not uncommon for sessions, you kind of look back through history, that they've gone 120 to 150 days.
The budget obviously is a requirement as far as adjourning, but things like Medicaid expansion and changing the sales tax, these are big priorities for the governor. Those aren't necessarily priorities, but are they de facto priorities this session?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they have to be. The Medicaid thing has to get resolved one way or the other. I mean, you cannot move forward on a budget plan the way the political landscape is laid out right now. You can't act on a budget until you get this Medicaid thing sorted out. And, you know, if the legislature were to decide that it wanted to do a budget without the Medicaid issue, it'd be a replay of what we saw in 2009 when the legislature tried to do a budget without the governor's sales tax increase issue. And, you know, we all saw what happened there when she promptly rejected the budget.
Is there any attempt, do you think, to do that, or is that willpower not there?
Right now, there hasn't really been, there's been a little bit of talk about it, but there hasn't been any attempt or any desire to go down that road. Republican leaders we've talked with have said that they feel like they've made good progress on the rest of the budget, on everything that's not directly tied to that Medicaid proposal, and that they feel confident that once a resolution is reached on that issue, that they'll be able to get the budget done in short order.
Okay, so things are happening at the Capitol, not happening all that quickly, and you guys could be down there for a while.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I know at the beginning of the year everyone was kind of hopeful that this would be another 100-day session, 110-day session, and yeah, it took about a month before people started to realize, okay, this might take a little bit longer. And I think the longer we've gone, the attitude's become more and more pessimistic. And you know, they do an annual kind of pick the sine die day pool, and there were a lot of people who the most popular day was the end of May, was May 31st. People kind of thinking that, you know, that deadline of not being here in June will prompt people to kind of come to the table and get stuff done, but we'll see.
Yes, nature will have its way, won't it? We mentioned that Fred Duvall has announced, he's made it official, he is running for governor. That's you better make it official. I mean, every Democrat in the state seems like they're lining up behind the guy, or at least half of the Democrats in the state. Who is Fred Duvall, and what kind of chance has he got?
Yeah, Fred Duvall, you know, you mentioned in your intro, you know, former Clinton aide, and you know, most recently the Board of Regents here. He's been around, politics, for the last 30 or 40 years, Democratic politics, but he's kind of built an image and kind of built a career out of trying to be the guy who bridges the gap, not a rigid partisan, but the guy who wants to work to find consensus and find that common ground between Republicans and Democrats. He talked about that today in his announcement speech. Talked about his first job in government was working for Bruce Babbitt back in the 80s, and how Governor Babbitt set out to work with the Republican-controlled legislature and find things that they could agree on and work for major policies. And he said, that's what I want to emulate. I want to go find these Republicans who are I think what he called it, interested in common sense solutions and not partisan politics.
That sounds like someone who's interested in policy. What kind of experience does he have, though, as far as down and dirty elections?
He's had some forays into elections in the past. I think the most recent one was for Congress a number of years ago. Didn't win, obviously. This is about as big a scale, I think, as you can get in Arizona. I mean, he's running for governor. That's about it. So we'll see. He will almost certainly have a primary against Chad Campbell, the House Minority Leader.
Is that pretty much a done deal, you think, or?
Technically, I mean, Campbell hasn't come out and said that he's definitely going to run, but everyone assumes that he's going to be running, and he certainly hasn't been backing down. Some of Duvall's people have been saying the last week, Chad should step aside and should just say he's not going to run, and Campbell's response has basically been, no, it's okay. I'm fine doing what I'm doing.
Okay, and on the Republican side, we have another candidate, an official candidate now for governor, Al Melvin, Senator Al Melvin from the Tucson area. A bit of a surprise there?
Yeah. He announced on Monday that he is forming an exploratory committee for governor, although it sounded like, the exploratory committee was kind of a pro forma thing to make sure he didn't have to resign from office, and it sounds like he is fully committed to running for governor. He has a Republican from the Tucson area, is in his third term in the state Senate, and he's someone who certainly is going to have to raise his profile, in order to run for an office of this caliber.
What's he known for at the Capitol? I remember he thought that Arizona should look at nuclear disposal sites within the state boundaries, those sorts of things. Interesting thing to run on, I would imagine. But it sounds like he's a jobs guy.
Yeah, and it's definitely been one of his focuses. In the last couple of years, certainly a lot of Republicans have talked about jobs, and he's tried to find areas where he thinks that Arizona can do better. One thing that he mentioned that he's talked about a lot in his time in the legislature is, building a deep water port in the Sea of Cortez in Mexico and turning Arizona into a shipping corridor, for that kind of stuff, instead of, so those boats wouldn't have to go to L.A. They could come into Mexico, and Arizona could benefit from getting all that corridor. The nuclear recycling, waste recycling issue you mentioned, another thing that he's really been big on.
So we've got Hugh Hallman making it official. We've got Al Melvin announcing he's going to explore, but explore very hard. You've got, Bennett, you've got Ducey, you've got Scott Smith, you've got Christine Jones, the GODAD. This is shaping up to be as crowded as everyone expected.
Yeah, it's definitely shaping up to be a crowded field, and you're right. I think the fact that you had a vacant seat and no incumbent, I think, is going to attract a lot of people, and we'll see how many of them stick it out till the end. How many are here a year from now? How many of these people are actually still looking at this race or still in this race?
And there will be a vacancy, correct? I mean, is the governor still making noises about running again or trying to run again?
The governor hasn't officially said that she's not going to seek the chance to run again. But I think the last thing we heard out of her about this actually was a joke about it. She kind of joked about the fact that, I don't know why these, Republican legislators think they're going to be done with me in 2 years because I got 5 more years before I'm out of here. But I think most people have come to the conclusion that she is probably not going to challenge.
So she's having fun with it, but that's as far as it goes for now.
For now.
All right. Well, that'll be good enough for now. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Get the inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an 8 Insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the 8 Insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today. Expand your horizon with the Arizona Horizon website. To get there, go to azpbs.org. Click on the Arizona Horizon tab at the top of the screen. Once there, you can access many features, watch interviews by clicking on the video button. You can also find out what's on Arizona Horizon for the coming week. If you would like an RSS feed, a podcast, or want to buy a video, that's all on the website too. Want to learn about specific topics like immigration or the legislature? You can visit our special web sections. Show your support for Arizona Horizon at azpbs.org/Arizona Horizon.
The U.S. Senate's immigration reform bill includes billions of dollars marked for border security, along with expected spending on everything from drones to prosecutors to additional customs agents. Much of that federal money could find its way into Arizona. And here to talk about the overall economic impact of immigration reform on the state is ASU economist Dennis Hoffman. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Ted.
There's direct spending, there's indirect stuff. We have a lot to talk about here, but just in general, the impact of this proposal on the Arizona economy.
Well, just for basic perspective, and you're absolutely right. You can go out on the web and you can find numbers all over the place, and there's you really have to look at that material very carefully and figure out what is, academically credible and viable. But look, this is more freedom in the labor markets. I mean, on a very simple level, if you allow more flexibility in the labor markets, in the hiring and firing process, in the job search process, in the human capital investment process, this is a win for the economy. You're effectively adding resources to the economy that has to end up as positives for the entire nation, positives for the state.
Let's go. I want to get to Mexico and cross-border traffic and trade in a second, but back to what you're talking about here.
Yes.
Does the bill address Arizona labor needs?
Oh, it does. When I think about Arizona labor needs, I think in the way that this particular bill affects them, I think about the lower skill jobs, the jobs in agriculture that we hear about a lot, the jobs in construction, in contracting. I think if you look at our state historically, in the population growth serving sectors, we have leveraged undocumented labor. And again, the numbers are tough to get definitively, but we have clearly leveraged undocumented labor over the years. And we can fill niches in that way with a viable, enforceable guest worker piece of this, and also allowing some of the folks that currently reside in the U.S. Access to the labor markets. But then we also, if you want to flip this to the high skill jobs, and we did an extensive study a couple of years ago for the Arizona Technology Council and investigated the needs of our technology businesses. And they're crying for skilled labor. And I see this every day at the universities. We have hundreds of folks enrolled, especially in our graduate programs, that come to us from foreign countries. They fill a lot of these graduate classes, and I've heard a lot of politicians say over the years that we need to, staple a green card to their diplomas. Well, to some degree, this legislation is a move in that direction.
Indeed, it sounds like the H-1B visas, the cap has been raised, and that impact, yes, I think, would be positive, yes, toward Arizona. But also,
absolutely,
they would. I think that the legislation calls for these particular workers that they would have to be paid higher wages. Does that make sense? And again, how does that affect the state?
Well, from an economic perspective, I understand there's politics lurking everywhere here. From an economic perspective, I think we're better off allowing the employee and the employer to figure out wages on their own. I'd say the same thing, by the way, about minimum wage or wages for this group of folks. The more you can move in that particular direction, I think the better off the economy is going to be.
And as far as the lower skilled workers, there's an agricultural visa program, I think, for farm workers.
Yes.
Again, in terms of Arizona's economy, how do the multipliers work there? You got more folks employed, and not hiding out, spending money.
Right.
What kind of multiplier effects are we seeing?
Well, okay, so if you look at, I think one of the best studies that I saw, and it was endorsed by in the Cato Journal, it came out of a think tank out of UCLA. So it was certainly vetted in the referee process. Extensive modeling done. It was done for the entire country, but then the author also focused on California and on Arizona. He looked at three possible outcomes, three possible scenarios, and one was a full immigration reform, effectively taking the 11 million folks that are in the country now and unleashing them on the labor market. A second variation was to just focus on this guest worker program for low-skilled people to try to address the agricultural issue. And the third, just for simulation purposes, deporting this 11 million, which, of course, I'm not in favor of, but some folks want to talk about. And the economic consequences to the full reform are really very positive. Excuse me, on the order of 1% GDP growth for the U.S. That translates into a $2 billion increment for the state of Arizona. It's really very, very positive. Now, this is one of the studies that I saw that has the biggest impact. And it was based upon, by the way, the data that he got from 1986, which I think is very informative. The last major immigration reform that took place under the Reagan administration, by the way, in 1986. And he used some of the measurable positive impacts on that. It's really kind of fascinating when you kind of think about that. You think about Arizona in the late 80s, early 90s. The economy was not great in Arizona during that particular period. But my thought, of course, went, wow, I wonder what it would have been like had we not liberalized immigration at that particular point.
Interesting.
Over the last 5 years, Ted, we've had exactly the opposite. As of December in 2007, we imposed the most aggressive employer sanctions law in the entire nation. And we all know what's happened to our labor markets since 2007.
Well, and with that in mind,
fascinating to think about this.
With that in mind, this new bill now looks at enhancing E-Verify around the country.
Yes.
Arizona has experience with E-Verify. First of all, is Arizona ready for this? And has E-Verify really worked in the state? I mean, how many employers are being marched in front of magistrates? I don't see too many.
No, they're not. Now, here's the challenge. Even if you look back to 86, and people talk about a lot of the successes and the positives that followed the 86 Act, the challenge, of course, is it didn't stem the tide for another complete generation of undocumented in-migration. And so there is certainly interest in terms of fence security, in terms of E-Verify, on the part of most Americans, I think, to try to do something about, hey, let's make this process legal, let's fix this porous border kind of situation. So I think E-Verify has to be a piece of that. I know people are mixed on it. It is onerous for some businesses, but in today's technology, my goodness, can't we develop a system where we can authenticate individuals that apply for positions? We have to go through a lot of red tape when we hire folks at ASU as well.
Sounds like a biometric green card is going to be required. I guess that's...
Can I sign up?
Yeah.
If it gets me through the airport security, I will sign up first.
I can't. We mentioned in the intro the fact that, border security, drones, fence surveillance, border patrol, judges, prosecutors, defenders, translators.
Yes.
I mean, all of these folks are going to be needed,
yes,
and they're going to be needed to be paid if border security is as strong as this bill proposes.
Indeed, and there's going to be a lot of jobs here. So, some of the folks with some of the business organizations have noted the number of jobs that might be generated by this stepped up effort in security. I'm amused by all of this when I think about Barry Goldwater's vision for the border today. Have you heard this quote?
No, I have not.
I think it's timely. So back in 1962, when asked to forecast what Arizona of 2012 would look like, so at the 50th anniversary, what will we look like at the 100th anniversary? Barry Goldwater was asked this question: what would Arizona look like? And he went down a list of things, and here's one of them. He said, quote, "Our ties with Mexico will be much more firmly established in 2012 because sometime within the next 50 years, the Mexican border will become as the Canadian border, a free one with formalities and red tape of ingress and egress cut to a minimum so that residents of both countries can travel back and forth across the line as if it were not there."
Well, that seems like a bit of a stretch from the U.S. Senate's bill proposal. It's an interesting quote, though. But let's go in that direction now. Let's talk about, again, cross-border trade, cross-border traffic, just getting back and forth, as maybe not quite as easily as the senator thought there. But what changes with this proposal?
We're very different from the vision of an interconnected relationship with Mexico. I think we need to work more in that direction to try to improve that. There's lots of costs that will be borne now to put all of this border security in place, to incur all of the wait times and security checking that this kinds of border security will require. Now, is it necessary? Unfortunately, I think it's a necessary political outcome today. Folks do tend to want border security. But we have to figure out ways, in my opinion, to integrate these economies, the economies of Mexico, the economy of Mexico and the economy of the U.S., in a much more sophisticated way than we currently have.
Do you see that direct business with Mexico increasing or just simply changing if something like this were to go through?
Well, I think that there's a lot of momentum for investments in infrastructure, for improved and warming relations on some fronts, especially with respect to certain business sectors in terms of the development, let's say, of aerospace, let's say of doing a better job, and I've heard this argument from a number of fronts in Arizona, connecting manufacturing facilities in Mexico with research and development facilities perhaps north of the border, and aligning that, leveraging, say, less expensive labor and manufacturing with the research and talent that could take place up here.
De facto outsourcing, in other words.
Indeed, and doing it in this hemisphere as opposed to shipping the jobs to Asia.
I think you'd mentioned something along the lines of that this is a matter of productivity and not politics, this particular bill. Explain, please. Well,
the productivity issue is what I think about when I think about immigration reform. Again, it's kind of my intro comments. When you unfetter labor markets, and you hear this from a lot of fronts, you've heard this historically from Senator Flake way back in his days with the Goldwater Institute when he promulgated open border, open labor types of policies, as many, this very libertarian, it's very consistent with Goldwater's original vision, as I've noted here, and with a libertarian kind of concept. You can maximize productivity if you maximize resources, if you unfetter markets. And that's very clear.
Okay, we have about 30 seconds left. We've talked about what could happen if this thing goes through. What happens to Arizona's economy if nothing changes?
Well, again, economists debate this. A number of economists will point out that many of these 11 million folks are already employed. They're actually paying taxes. They're underemployed. They're probably not earning the wages they would if they were, quote, legal. They're paying taxes, but they could be doing more. So we are sub-optimizing in our current situation. But certainly it isn't disaster. The status quo is not disaster.
Just could be a little bit better.
We could be much better.
All right. It's good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Great
Good stuff.
for being here, Ted.
Thursday on Arizona Horizon, we will look at a poll that shows that Senator John McCain is at his lowest job approval rating in 2 decades. And APS will respond to a survey that shows Arizonans want choices beyond utility-provided energy. That's at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.